Welcome to the Missouri 811 and Kansas 811 podcast. I'm Nick Reza with Missouri 811, and this is my good friend Art York from Kansas 811, and he's here to tell you a little bit about what's going to be on these podcasts.
Great, thanks, Nick. Really looking forward to these podcasts. Nick and I decided a couple months ago that we wanted to put a podcast together, invite some friends, some clients, things like that from across the industries, from utilities, locators, excavators, and we want to talk about what's going on in the field. We thought it'd be a great opportunity to hear some of the success stories out there, maybe some issues they're having. We plan on talking about a little bit of everything from what we've done in the past. Nick and I both have a background in utilities and locating, and now we've both been in the one-call industry for the last 8-10 years. Worked together on a lot of projects, so we wanted to partner up and do this, and so welcome. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please let us know if you're ever interested in being part of our podcast. Reach out to Nick or I. We'd love to have you on, but we really like to have a lot of good guests with a lot of good knowledge out there so you can take something away from it. Also have a little bit of fun while we're doing our podcast. So thanks. Sit down, relax, enjoy the show, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Art.
Well, hello. Thanks for joining once again, Nick and Arch's podcast for Missouri 811 and Kansas 811. We're pretty excited today to be down in Lynn, Missouri at State Technical College. We're going to have some good information to share with you guys today. My name's Art York. I work directly with Kansas 811, and this is my counterpart with Missouri 811.
Hey, I'm Nick Reza.
And our special guest today, we'll let you introduce yourself here with State Tech College.
Sure, yeah. Guys, thanks for coming down today. My name's Cole Schaefer. I'm the Department Chair and Lead Instructor for the Utilities Technology Program here at State Tech College.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today. We're not gonna burn up a lot of your time. I know you got classes on standby.
Yeah.
Get back in here, pretty important stuff. So to get things kicked off, if you don't mind, can you just kind of give us a pretty high-level overview about what State Tech is, kind of where it started, and some of the premise behind it?
Sure. So State Tech is a two-year college here in Lynn, Missouri, centrally located in the state. We offer 30-plus two-year degree-seeking programs that can range in nature from utilities technology to heavy equipment operations, welding operations. We've got several options in health science. We've got some network and computer classes, cybersecurity, digital marketing, electrical technology, machine tool. Again, it's just the college in and of itself is kind of built around the fundamental idea. There's a lot of trade work out there. There's a lot of hands-on work that needs to be taught to people before they're ready to go do it for a living. And what we offer is a wide range of that mindset and skill sets. And specific to utilities technology, one of the newer programs here on campus, the fall of 2018 was the first year that we had our class, first incoming class. I was on in the fall of 18, came on the summer before the fall of 18 to prepare for that inaugural class. We recruited up to 25 students that first year. That was the benchmark. I think we started with 23. And so again, not bad, all things considered, right? Brand new, kind of trying to put the feelers out there to see what kind of interests we have. And that first group, again, it was a great group, right? But we've changed a lot since then. We've added some additional instructors, some buildings. We've grown the program now to where we're recruiting currently up to 50 students every year. And with the goal being, we retain roughly about 80% or plus of that. So hopefully every 2 years, we're graduating 40 plus kids to go to work in some kind of utility capacity, whether that's utility construction or utility service delivery. Prior to the fall of 18, though, how did the program started? It started with a couple of industry partners that were coming to the college and recruiting and hiring kids out of other programs, mostly the heavy equipment operations program. Specific to that employer, they were seeing, a higher need for drill operators or drill specialists because of the utility construction, the fiber boom, and other things going on. They were beefing up their drill crews and needing more specialized training. And not to diminish what our HEO, heavy equipment operations program, is doing, but that wasn't a phase training that was required for those students. It was kind of optional right around their internship time. Some of the students would go through it. But again, there was no formalized drill training. Yeah, right? And there was nothing about locating or utility underground construction. What is all below us? And so that employer, along with a couple of other employers in Missouri 811, approached the college and said, hey, we see an opportunity here to maybe have some more specific training in addition to what you're doing. And throughout that conversation, I think they quickly realized this isn't just some standalone additional certification training. We see an opportunity here for maybe its own program.
Sure.
And some people could say, well, do you see that as possibly taken away from that heavy equipment operations program? And really, No, what they're focusing on and what they're doing is completely different than what we're focusing on. Some of the equipment overlaps, and some of the employers hire out of both, but there's a specific need they're wanting from them and a specific need we're wanting from us.
So Cole, I do have a question for
Yeah.
you. I know you'd mentioned several employers out there, and I remember back in the late 2000s there when we were coming into looking at this. I remember coming down here with the executive director at the time of Missouri 811.
John Lansford.
Yeah, John Lansford. Yeah,
Yep.
we came down, we sat in a meeting, we talked about the vision.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've been down here, and
Yeah.
wow, has it changed. It's pretty impressive. But I do want to kind of circle back. You'd mentioned the employers that
Sure.
came to you, and I know Selner Construction, for instance.
Yeah.
We all know Bob. He's been in the business forever, great guy. Very enthusiastic about getting this off the ground. And I think that's a great tool, but what were they looking for? Was it because they were having a hard time finding qualified people, or just the churn within their business? What do you think was the big driver for all the support to get State Tech off the ground?
Arch, I don't know if it was one specific thing that they were looking for. I think it was probably a combination of a lot of things. I think it was some more specific training.
Okay.
They were hiring people out of a program that maybe didn't have that specific training, maybe being asked to do something either A, they didn't really want to do or weren't comfortable doing. That might have been part of it. So they were seeing a churn rate that they probably didn't like specific to that position. I think also they saw an opportunity just, again, to get a candidate for an internship or full-time employment that had gone through more specific training that aligned with what they were doing. And whether it's the Sellenricks or Emery Sapp and Sons,
Sure.
Missouri 811, there was a couple of employers that have been with us. ADB, I can remember they were our founding board of not governors, but advisors. They were the three companies in the Missouri 811 that, kind of drove all this. And to Missouri 811's credit, I think we're seeing an opportunity. Hey, if we can get some more formalized locating training and do a better job at trying to promote how important and how detrimental this is for a lot of different reasons, having a secured, somewhat controlled environment to learn that in, and that way you're not learning it on the job site. That's a win for everybody involved, us internally and also, our stakeholders, the operators out there, the utility companies that we work for. And so I think everybody had a vested interest for maybe some of the same reasons, but some unique reasons too. So back to the employers, I think, again, what they're seeing as an opportunity here is, they can hire out of other programs,
Right.
and try and maybe turn that candidate into a different version, not completely different, but molded into some other, or if they can hire straight out of our program and have something that's more in line with what their workforce is needing from a utility operator or your equipment operator in utility construction, that's probably going to result in a better retention rate for them and a better candidate that is going to be a little more reliable.
Well, Cole, you're absolutely right about Missouri 811's involvement in trying to get this going. A nationwide program right now is to try to reduce damages across the nation by 50% in 5 years, which is a really noble goal. It's like it's going to take a lot of work to get there. I mean, we struggle with things every day that make that goal hard to achieve. And one of the things, I was down here a few weeks ago we held a board meeting here at State Tech, and I was blown away by the different programs you guys are offering. And can you just kind of talk a little bit about what maybe different utilities classes you hold here, like
Sure.
water classes or associated with gas, the different types of utilities that they're getting more training on?
Sure, yeah, so big level, we are in a building that shares the building with 3 total programs, right? The Utility Technology Center houses the Utilities Technology Program, which, I'm in charge of and I instruct in. It also has the Electrical Distribution Systems program. So power linemen, somebody wanting to go work in the electric grid, whether that's overhead underground substation, co-ops, power companies, distribution,
And correct me
transmission.
if I'm wrong, that used to be your #1 program.
It still is a very popular program. Number one or not, they recruit very, very well, very good. There's a lot of interest here in the state of Missouri from all corners of the state to want to come up here, and I think they do a great job of really exposing those students to everything they need to really set them up during their internship or full-time employment. Yeah, it's a very popular program. Makes me jealous at times of how easily they recruit. But, we'll get there one day. Again, they've been around, I think 1998 was their first year. So we're 20 years behind that as far as that goes. And I don't think we're too terribly far behind being where they're at as far as being able to recruit. But they're also in this building. And then we've got our energy technology program. Heavy emphasis in that program on the nuclear side, but also they've got options and alternative means of energy as well. And I don't want to speak specific to that because I don't want to misrepresent them. But it's energy technology. going into careers, nuclear plants, solar, wind, anything energy related in that aspect. So that's the 3 programs that are housed in this. Specific to utilities technology, Nick, our program is kind of fundamentally built around 3 different utility grids. The communication grid, fiber optics, some copper still, because there's a lot of copper out there.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
we are training students still to be somewhat proficient in a copper grid, but we have a heavy emphasis on the fiber side. And then we've got natural gas and water, wastewater. And so inside of those 3 utility grids, we can get even more specific, whether it's teaching them how to fusion splice or do some kind of loss testing with fiber optics. Natural gas, across the hallway right now, we've got some first-year students learning a lot of different welding techniques on polypipe, both HDPE and other forms. But again, that's, kind of preparing them for some natural gas. And then outside right now, it's a unique class we just started, but they're learning some basic welding techniques on metal too. It's an equipment maintenance class. Sure. But that class will eventually grow this as the semester moves along to that water, wastewater construction element. So depending on where you're at in the program, first year, second year, fall, spring, there's different opportunities that we expose the students to those utility grids. They all kind of flow into each other and are built around, the basic competencies you're going to learn in that fall semester, the first fall semester, are still being used in that second year. But we do have those breakout classes alone too that still focus on that utility grid. And it's not just conceptually talking about it. We'll build it. We've got an indoor 20,000 square foot unconditioned dirt lab in here to where if Mother Nature's not being conducive outside, we can fall back inside. But rest assured, if we can be outside in any capacity, cold, hot, maybe a little muddy, maybe a slight rain, we're going to be out there because that's where their careers are going to be. And we've got an exponentially large field right now that we can bury gas line in, we can bury some water line in, we can put some fiber cable in the ground, we can run traditional excavating equipment, mini excavators to large excavators, we can set up drills and simulate utility lines in the ground and have students navigate that utility grid and successfully expose that drill head on the other end of the field and then hook up some kind of product to it and pull it back. So it's simulating a job site for them. So we've got a lot of diversity in our program, and it I think is a huge win for the students because now they've got multiple skill sets. They've got multiple tools at their advantage upon their internship and graduation. That's going to make them very marketable for a lot of different employers out there. And the more marketable they are, I think the more that they can see a compensation increase for them.
I was getting ready to say is like in the utility or excavating world, they're going to be miles ahead of someone that's just walking a door and applying for one of those jobs. I would assume. Sure.
And that's, consistently what we hear from, we are very fortunate in this program. And I don't know intimate details of a lot of other programs, and my focus is a utilities technology program and the partners I work with. But I can just see from afar, and also having conversations with some of the other department heads, the employers that work with us, they're very passionate about what they do, and they're very, very beneficial to us in the form of donations, time, energy, employers coming down to talk to them. We've seen anything from a piece of equipment being sent up here to demo to them coming up and spending an hour with us and buying lunch for all the students just to try and give a sales pitch or an educational breakdown about what they do. So the employers love what we're doing, and they absolutely love getting their hands on a graduate student because nothing against, nothing we do here is trade secret, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Everything that we're training students on here, we learned in industry, right? Sure. So whether it's my background in communication or Eric's background in, a lot of utility constructions, his main focus is operations of equipment and water, wastewater, or Riley's experience in the natural gas world, like we all learned our trade in industry and are just reproducing that here.
That's awesome.
So somebody can, in theory, if they wanted to, right out of high school, go to work for these employers. Sure. But I think what you see there is sometimes the churn rate on that is a little bit higher. The desire to do that task maybe not as much. And so the employers recognize they need a workforce, and sometimes they need it right now, but if they can have the opportunity and the luxury to hire one of our graduate students, it usually results in a huge win for everybody. The student is 2 years into something, they've stayed with it. They have a lot of formalized training, education, hands-on opportunities with it, so they're more than competent and capable day one. They're more productive for that employer. They're more reliable and independent for that employer. But like with anything, that employer can teach anybody anything that they want to. But I think that time to teach that sometimes is even longer than the 2 years that we might have with that student.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
Yeah, that ramp-up time is pretty tough.
It is.
And that's what we see with a lot of employers come out and I was one of those students, came directly out of high school. I didn't, I wasn't ready for college. It just wasn't my thing. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going to work for several different construction crews. And I spent a lot of time,
in the workshop looking for board stretchers and buckets of spot welds and things like that, which is always a funny thing because that's what the new guy gets to do, It's like I still have yet to find that board stretcher.
I was on my internship, and I can remember one of the guys, he asked me to go I was working for a phone company in Cole County then, and he said, hey, go to the truck and go get me that copper stretcher. And I was like, okay.
Copper stretcher, yeah.
I'm looking around, he's just up there laughing.
Yeah,
so we've all been
a
there.
Teeth on it's got a handle. We've all been
go
there.
find it. Still ain't found it.
I do think it's a benefit for an opportunity for a young person to go directly in. And Nick and I, a lot of the reason we put this podcast together was to help our memberships and things like that, to talk about stuff. When we've had a couple of podcasts that we've talked about, there's trades out here that are career building, that you can get into this. If you learn this trade, you get this is a ticket for the rest of your life. So we talked a little bit about recruitment, and I think it's important that we talk just a little bit about some of the finances and some different things, the opportunities at State Tech. I'll be honest with you, you pull into the parking lot, this is a pretty impressive place.
It is.
And you walk in, and you could be a little intimidated thinking, I might not be able to afford to go here.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit of a misnomer, because we talked a little bit before we started the podcast about things we wanted to talk about. So if you could kind of mention a little bit about the scholarships, a little bit about the A+ program, a little bit about, just say the person coming in off the street maybe don't have that opportunity, what it would take to get a good degree here, and what kind of degree do you get when you complete the course?
Sure, yeah. So our program is a 2-year program, and again, if you really want to get specific about it, it's 21 months. It's 5 semesters. We'll do a fall and spring semester as a first year. That summer semester is an internship class that they will take. They'll work directly with the employer. We oversee some things, but it is a course they take, so it is considered their 3rd semester. Upon completion of that, they come back for their last 2 semesters, fall and spring. Again, 21 months, 5 semesters. At the end of it, if they complete all 72 credit hours in some way, shape, or form, they've got an associate's degree. And so to break that associate's degree down, we'll get to the finances of that here in a second, but to break the associate's degree down, 50 of the 72 credit hours is technical classes. And so the majority of what they're doing while they're here is a classroom setting or a lab setting that's focused on a particular utility technology related class. Again, it can be fiber optic splicing or fiber optic communications. It can be pole climbing. It can be running equipment. It can be gas splicing. It can be utility locating, job site management, learning leveling instruments like rotating lasers, transits. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So those classes, again, present more of an opportunity, not a typical classroom where you're coming in, taking notes, watching PowerPoint presentations, whatever, and not to diminish those classes, but for a lot of our students, that's not why they're coming here. And so we recognize that, and the majority of that degree is built around the fundamental classes that are going to make them as the most productive and proficient in their respective field at the end of their 21 months here. And so that's the technical breakdown of how they get the degree, and it is an associate's degree. The finances of it, and again, I know enough to kind of help have casual conversations with students, family members, or just inquiring parties. You're going to figure roughly, say, around $200 a credit hour. Right. And so at the end of the 72 credit hours, if you have to take all of those, barring a transfer credit of a dual credit class in high school for math or science, whatever, you're roughly looking at that total of 72 times that roughly 200. Sure. And then you figure in some other tools, fees, or books. You're looking at a couple thousand on top of that. Sure. The benefit that some of our students are allowed coming here is we are an A+ eligible school. And so if you go through high school and you qualify and are eligible for A+ and maintain that A+ eligibility throughout, A+ is going to cover pretty much the entire credit hour cost, okay? And so that's a huge financial break and win for those students. And so again, we see a lot of students come in with that A+ eligibility, which means, for lack of better terms, those 72 credit hours are taken care of because of the work they did in high school and the GPA. Now, there are minimum standards while they're still going here. They have to maintain a certain GPA and a full-time load. Outside of that, if they do that, they stay A+ eligible, 100% of their classes will be covered.
And you mentioned you get a 2-year degree.
Mm-hmm.
That separates you from a lot of technical colleges, right?
It really does. So our program is not a certificate-based program. At the end of it, if you complete all of the degree requirements, both from the utilities technology and just the college requirements for the general education classes, you will have an associate's degree. Now, it's going to be an associate's degree of utilities technology, sure. But again, it's an associate's degree which bridges into any higher degree after that, whether you want to go pursue your bachelor's or continue on after that. And again, there's a healthy conversation about what does that piece of paper do for you. At the end of the day, entry-level work, it's going to give you a great starting position over some other candidates, and also for future promotions or leadership roles or any kind of management roles.
Yeah, if they're getting ready to get into management.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, and
Leg up
again,
on somebody.
it definitely, and I think also, and I agree with this. I'm a big, proponent of saying that degree may not just be anything other than a piece of paper to the student, but it also shows the employer 2 years of commitment, 2 years of, doing what is asked of you, meeting all the minimum requirements and sometimes exceeding those and getting up to the maximum, potential you have there. But it shows somebody who is committed to something and that they are more than willing against a candidate who doesn't have one, that maybe doesn't have that commitment level. And also it's something that you can easily bridge then into a higher degree if you want to, bachelor's or whatever.
And what would you say to those students that don't know what we know in this room about the utility and excavating world, about the type of jobs they will be getting into? Typically, I would say those are a little bit higher paying jobs than a lot of other places out there.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about what's the type of jobs they will be getting into and the benefit of that?
I don't know the exact number, but every program on campus, they'll pull a national labor statistic, average for the utilities technology, and it's a very, very good starting wage. But again, that's a moving target. Typically where you're at and what you're doing, if you're in a big market, St. Louis, Kansas City, Springfield, you're doing some kind of gas construction or fiber optic work or just running equipment, you're probably going to see a significant difference in some of the other markets. But again, regardless of where you're at, all within reason, generally across the board, they are very, very good starting wage jobs. Our interns, typically are seeing, close to the $20 an hour mark, and some of them exponentially higher than that, which for an intern, well, again, they're 18, 19 years old. That's some pretty good coin, I think, to be making right out the gate. And then you turn around as a full-time employee. Most of the companies recognize now you're a graduate, you've met all the requirements of school, you've got some safety certifications in there. So our program specific requires OSHA 10 to be completed, first aid CPR, flagger certification, trenching and excavating, confined space are the 5 certifications they have to get done, and typically those are done in the first year before internship. But also it's a CDL requirement, CDL required program. So the intent would be they can't graduate without their CDL, and if they run through our CDL course, they are given the opportunity to have a Class A with no restrictions. And so that's a huge win for a lot of our employers.
Wow. That's huge, and that's something that we need to focus on a lot, because a lot of them, and this is almost a message to the employees out there that are watching this podcast, is everything you just mentioned, if you hire a person off the street, you're going to have to pay for that.
We circled back to that a while ago. So now you hire them off the street, but now you're investing that time, energy, and money.
For a CDL. I know lots of young people that have went into delivery business who have had to sign a contract with the employer because the employer was going to pay for their CDL classes, but then they're locked in for a 2-year period or whatever it is before they can ever transition to a different job or whatever to pay that employer back for the cost of that. So this is a situation where a student comes out with an associate's degree, they're ready to go to work. They have the certs. There could be little tweaks and things per each company. However, they got a lot of certifications under their belt already.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at that, you have these students come through. They look at their jobs. They go out there. What is kind of and I know you can't pinpoint it exactly. What's the job opportunity? Or what's maybe some percentages or close to percentage of people when they leave your program of going to work?
Yeah. Statistically speaking, the college tracks all of that from a placement standpoint for our graduates. If you're just talking job placement, the college as a whole, and our program included, is 99% placement on that. And that's not program specific, trade specific. If you get to that level, we are above the standard, I think, that the college usually is asking or wanting, 80%. And it varies from graduating class to graduating class, but we're high 80s, low 90s on trade specific placement for the students upon graduation. So it means now they're picking a career specific to what they just spent 21 months getting educated and trained on.
Well, Cole, I know we only got about 10 minutes left with you because you're actually going to teach a class after this, correct?
Yeah.
I'd really, to kind of finish up for today, I'd really like you to talk about the Safety Village and kind of where that's heading and where it's at now and kind of how it started.
Yeah, so again, Safety Village, Safety and Infrastructure Village is a recent addition to our, training arsenal that we've got here. We've got this huge, great building with some state-of-the-art classrooms and labs, indoor training opportunities, outdoor training opportunities that we've had for a while now. But Safety and Infrastructure Village, we just got the turned over to us this school year, right? They completed the project late summer, early fall. They're putting some finishing touches on it, so we haven't actually integrated classes into it yet. But from a training standpoint, it presents a lot of cool opportunities, right? Unique opportunities that most schools, I don't think, are going to have the luxury to offer. So Safety Infrastructure Village was designed with a mindset of we probably need to do a better job of training utility locators and excavators about everything that's in the ground and the dangers it presents. Nobody wants to damage a utility, and nobody wants to get hurt damaging a utility. At least that's the mindset you should have. And so it takes all of us working together, from the locators and the locating companies to the excavators and the crews they work for to the utility providers. All three stakeholders have to be, on the same page when it comes to the safety and the general understanding. Nobody wants a water line leaking, and nobody wants a gas line or a fiber line hit either, right? At the end of the day. So accuracy matters, and your safety and health matters. And so that was a lot of the conversation, I think, on the forefront. John Lansford, we mentioned him earlier. He was one of the original, I don't want to say masterminds, but somebody who had that mindset of, hey, maybe there's an opportunity. We're doing this specific training for utility contractors. What about utility locating, and what opportunities could we look at there? And that kind of evolved into an underground training opportunity for our program just for utility locating and equipment operating. But even that grew. We saw the opportunity. Hey, there's some programs here on campus, electrical technology, HVAC. So from electricians and heating and ventilation, air conditioning, repair, or installation technicians, we're going to have houses down here that are going to have simulated utilities to them. Why not put some live utilities in there as well and allow them to use that house as an opportunity for an extension of their labs? And so when you get into Safety and Infrastructure Village, there are live utilities, but they're in a certain area at every single house. And we know that, everybody knows it. We have simulated dead utilities also at every one of those houses. And so that's our playground, that's our play zone inside of that area, to where we can dig around electric lines, we can dig around a gas line, a fiber line, without any detriment to that utility or to the students.
And just to give the listeners that out there, when you pull up to this safety village, it's like you're pulling into a subdivision.
That's the intent of it.
Nick drove me down there before we came in today. I said, well, let's drive down. It looks like you're driving in a normal subdivision.
Yeah.
One thing I want to mention, though, is I noticed that pretty cool thing is out front of each of those houses on that street.
Yeah.
It looks like a real estate sign.
For sale.
For sale, the sponsorship. And I noticed that Missouri 811 is sponsoring the very first people in.
Yeah.
I did notice that there's still several for sale.
Sure.
So if anybody's listening is very interested in getting into this, it's a great opportunity. Reach out to
Reach out to me, reach out to us. We'd love to. And again, those are
pretty
recognizing.
impressive.
Absolutely. And that's a credit to Missouri 811 and the partnership and the money, the financial money that they've put down to help build that. That Safety and Infrastructure Village, the initial plan for it pales in comparison to what the finalized product was. But the finalized product, again, I would rest assured, not only in the state, but probably in this Midwestern region, nothing else like it out there. And we've really just started to dabble in what we're going to do in it, right? It was just turned over to us. But I envision an opportunity down there where a multitude of classes are locating utility lines, excavating them around them, traditional with mini excavators, or trenchless with drills. And we're making a drill shot from one side of the road to the other, or one side of this, subdivision to the other, going through multiple yards and bypassing that utility
And I
grid.
don't know anywhere else that you can get training for digging around utilities unless you're in that industry.
Well, and
so
I think,
that's awesome.
And I think there's something that you guys should probably be prepared for, and we're hoping we get a lot of mileage out of this podcast and things like that. But I do think that there's going to be other states and other community areas that will look very highly at your operation.
Yeah.
I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, you're open to anybody come and check this out.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is just a great opportunity.
And we're currently working with that too. So the PCCA is a partner of our program in the school, and there are a couple other schools that are trying to get to where we're at from a 2-year standpoint and an associate's degree. They're doing some of the same training, but I think it is certificate based at this moment. They're bringing in some students, but maybe it's not to the number that we're bringing in. But the bottom line is, as long as you're not in a competing area with us as far as we're recruiting, we would love to work with you, because information is extremely valuable. And maybe there's something that you see or a perspective that you have or something that you would expose us to that we hadn't considered. And if we can help expedite your growing pains, because trust me, we had a lot of growing pains at the beginning. Yeah, that first class, I still keep in touch with all the classes. Not every single student, but occasionally, it's getting to the point now, this is our 7th year of teaching. And so we've had 5 graduating classes. This May we'll have our 6th one. And so some of those kids now have gotten married and are having kids and will invite us to weddings and all that, and that's really cool. You know, you're understanding the connection that you form with them and the opportunities that you've presented and opened them up to. But credit to that first couple of classes that went through here. You know, they went through some growing pains where we had a minimal fleet. We didn't have the buildings, the classrooms set up. Sometimes there was you know, other things that were kind of keeping them from having the exact opportunities that they should have had. But bottom line is, you know, we've changed a lot in the first couple of years, and I think what we're doing out here is really, really cool. And so if we can alleviate that pain point for anybody else or expedite that, you know, process for somebody else, we'd love to do it. And again, as long as they're not in a competing market and we're not taking the same kids, then we're all for it.
Well, before we wrap up, one thing I do want to thank you, all you guys here at State Tech. Not only are you providing classes, but you guys are involved in the community with damage prevention and safety efforts. I see you at the horizontal directional drilling rodeo competitions, at the Missouri CGA safety summits. Everything you guys are involved with only shows that you're not only interested in recruiting students to come through your program, but you are interested in what takes place after when they're out in the field and the safety aspect. So we definitely appreciate that.
Well, I can't, and I've named a couple companies there, but I'm going to apologize now. We've got so many fantastic partners out there, from people that hire our students, but also equipment manufacturers. You know, whether it's the folks at Ditch Witch Factory that are one of the first ones that stepped up and started making some donations, Chad and his team down at Vermeer Midwest, and how gracious they are every year with equipment donations. Vermeer Factory and the training team that we work with up there, the Ditch Witch folks, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so it's not, if I didn't mention you, hey, and you're listening, I'm sorry, but I'm telling you, Arch, right now, it's amazing the amount of people just in the last couple of years. You know, the HCD rodeo thing was something that got brought to us, you know, kind of you know, towards the end of summer, and we saw it as a great opportunity to speak at it and also work it. And there's other events coming up here in the next couple of years we're going to try and have a presence in, because there's so many people out there that are doing this type of stuff that don't know we're here and could utilize us as a recruiting funnel, as a recruiting opportunity, or they know some people that are wanting to pursue some kind of formalized education and training outside of high school, and they might funnel them our way. So I'd love to talk to anybody at any point in time about what we can do to support your employment needs, your employment request or whatever, or if you're just a company out there that's got something that's tied to utility construction or the utility world at all, and you want to come down and demo a piece of equipment or show something off, we'd love to have that too. We'll take anything.
That's great.
Cole, thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know
Absolutely.
You're a busy man.
Yeah.
Ars, do you have anything last words? Or?
No, I do appreciate your time. I do want the listeners to know that if you're interested in being part of our podcast, I think it's a great opportunity. I'm almost positive this won't be our last visit down here.
I'd love to have you guys back.
I'd love to come back. I actually would really love to interview some students.
Yeah,
Some
we'd
of the
make
people
that happen.
That are getting towards the end of their graduation, just to talk to them about their experience.
Yeah.
So we'll reach out to you that. But
Absolutely.
Any of the rest of our listeners, if you want to be part of our podcast, reach out to Nick or I. We'll get you guys on the schedule. We'll come to you to do it.
Yep.
We like to have fun. We like to talk about what's going on out there in the field, and any benefit we can help to our listeners would be great.
Heck
Well
yeah.
put.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you guys.
Well, that's it. Arch, do you have any final words?
No, just want to say thank you for joining today. Appreciate your time. Hope you got a little knowledge out of it, had a little fun. See you next time.
See you next time.